Hi, I'm Dan, this is our midlife crisis motorcyclist, and this is something of a scoop, this being the Maeving RM2, and a brand new model from the British-based electric bike specialist, building on the success of its very distinctive RM1 range, but now with twice the fun, because yes, clue in the name, the RM2 is the first Maeving which you can ride two up with a pillion. It also represents a bit of a shift in design direction over the RM1, which took its design cues from classic American board track racers, bobbers, things like that, whereas the RM2 is based on classic British bikes, the 50s and 60s, so your BSAs, your Triumphs, things like that. Other than that though, it is fundamentally the same as the RM1S, so it gets the same neat twin removable battery configuration where they sit here in what would be the engine block on a conventional combustion engine bike, but the really cool feature is you can easily remove them and take them with you to charge them anywhere you can score a domestic 3-pin socket, which is a really neat feature because charging electric bikes can be an even bigger pain than charging electric cars. Now these battery packs power a motor mounted in the rear wheel hub, which is again a really neat feature because it means no chain, no transmission. It means nice clean design and nice clean hands when it comes to maintenance and general upkeep and things like that. Power output for that motor is 15 horsepower, which puts it bang on the limit for riding on a basic CBT license and L plates, obviously not 2 up if that's you. But it also means that through a quirk of the way electric motors develop their output, this bike has more torque than a 2.5 litre Triumph Rocket 3. And you can ride it on a CBT. There, that got your attention, didn't it? Now, when the RM2 launches later in the year, it will cost just shy of 8 grand, which is about another 500 quid over the price of an RM1S, and is potentially a little bit problematic for the fact that's basically double what you would pay for an equally cool combustion bike like the Honda GB350S. In that context, can it make any sense whatsoever? Well, let's go for a ride and find out. Right, so for this first ride on the Maeving RM2, I thought we'd start in the city. Last time I rode it was in London, today I'm in Manchester, but urban streets seem to be the kind of comfort zone for an electric bike of this type. It's kind of what it's built for. But I also want to get out on some bigger roads to test the theory that this bike can do twisty roads, motorways as well. So we'll switch to that in a bit. But first of all, unsurprisingly it feels, bit of a beep there, unsurprisingly it feels very similar to the RM1S, which I rode previously. That's because it is. So we've got the same basic format of the hub-mounted motor. We've got the 2 battery packs with a total of 5.43 kilowatt hours of charge in them. We have 15 horsepower peak and the same things like the bicycle style brakes, so right for front, left for rear, and they're actually linked as well, so there's no ABS on this bike because apparently it doesn't need to have it, so instead the brakes are linked. So hopefully no scary lockups when the road is greasy. And it's very, very easy to ride. So just twist and go and off you go. So I think that's really the kind of the Maeving selling point, which is that it's very friendly for people who are perhaps new to powered two-wheelers. And Maeving says that a lot of its customers, just going to use the horn there because one thing about riding an electric motorbike in town is that nobody listens, nobody can hear you coming. So unlike a combustion bike where obviously you can just dip the clutch and give it some revs to tip people off, you don't have that luxury on the electric bike, so you might hear a bit of beeping as I go. Yeah, so Maeving says a lot of its customers are both younger and also coming straight to powered two-wheelers from bicycles, from e-bikes, things like that. So that user friendliness it feeling like an e-bike basically rather than a motorbike is a big selling factor for the target audience. But then there are also people, hardcore motorcyclists with plenty of combustion bikes in their stable as well, who are enjoying the bikes for just as a bit of a plaything as well. So it's got to cater to those kind of riders as well. People who like proper motorbikes might have a taste for the classics which have inspired the Maeving. So quite a broad range of people that it's trying to appeal to, but most of all that user friendliness is the most appealing thing. So, and for city streets, so you've got 3 rider modes. You've got Eco, which I think is limited to about 30 miles an hour. You've got Mode 1, which is limited to 45 miles an hour. That's the best one for your range, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then you've got the Sport mode, which unleashes the full 70 miles an hour top speed and does reduce the range somewhat. So yeah, so range is obviously going to be an important factor for anyone considering an electric bike. That, by the way, is full throttle in Mode 1, so you'll see the acceleration isn't blinding for all that talk of same amount of torque as a Triumph rocket. So it's pretty steady. It's well measured, because if they hadn't calibrated it properly, that would be really violent. So it's nice and smooth, not too scary. It's not going to have you wheeling away from every set of traffic lights. Just squeeze around these guys. So yeah, that's nice and easy to get your head round. But yeah, range, as I say, is going to be an important consideration for anyone looking at an electric bike. And if you ride it everywhere in the Eco mode or the Mode 1, your best case range is going to be about 80 miles, or so it claims. Whereas if you ride everywhere in Sport mode, it'll be more like 45 miles, something like that. So certainly enough for regular commuting and things like that. I've done my commute to and from Manchester before on electric bikes, on the V-Moto Stash and on the Zero, and it's about a 70-mile round trip depending which way I go, and that on both the Zero and the Stash was at the absolute limit of what the battery on both bikes was capable of. And it meant for the ride home things were getting a little bit sketchy in terms of range. But the beauty of the Maeving is, of course, that unlike those two bikes, you can remove the battery and charge it wherever you are. So if I run a Maeving into the office, I could easily do the 35 miles in, take the batteries out, charge them under my desk, and then I'd know I'd have plenty of range for the ride home as well. So in that respect, the Maeving's removable battery system is an absolute winner and just makes life that bit more viable with an electric bike. Very, very appealing. So yeah, in the city, the Maeving is absolutely in its element, and for this kind of ducking and weaving through traffic, the instant torque delivery is really, really appealing. And the size of it as well, so it doesn't feel much bigger than an e-bike. So if you're coming from a line bike or something like that for kind of cutting and weaving through traffic, you'll find it very, very straightforward. Unlike a line bike, you do have to stop at red traffic lights though, so you may have to adjust your riding style accordingly. Anyway, so there is a taste of the Maeving on city streets. How does it cope out on bigger, faster roads? Well, let's go and find out. Okay, so having demonstrated that the Maeving is, unsurprisingly, very good on city streets, how does it fare when you get onto faster roads like this? Because this puts a bigger question over electric bikes, doesn't it? Given that on a twisty country road like this, The joy of riding a combustion bike is the noise, the punctuation of the gear changes, and let's face it, the extra performance, because even in the sport mode, there's no escaping that the Maeving is not a fast bike. So for all that talk of Rocket 3 beating torque, this is full throttle up a reasonably steep hill, and it's not exactly racing away with it. So measure your expectations when it comes to outright speed. This is basically a 125 in terms of performance levels, but that's absolutely fine. And what's weird, as you can probably tell from the onboard, is the silence, which is a really odd sensation of riding a road like this in complete silence. It's very peculiar. It takes a bit of getting used to. Is it nicer than being on a noisy combustion bike? More interesting, exciting? I don't know. It's different. It's different, but it certainly puts a fresh perspective on riding a motorcycle, that's for sure. And in terms of performance, yeah, it's not mega quick by any means, but it's got enough. How about the handling? Well, again, I've only ridden it thus far on city streets, so I've not really had a chance to increase the speeds or try it through some turns and things like that. This bike I'm riding here has the slightly uprated rear suspension units, so they're a bit fancier than the standard ones, and they do feel a bit plusher. There's only about 80 mm of travel at the back, so it's not a particularly plush bike, but seems to be dealing with the bumps pretty nicely. And actually the size of the bike is pretty accommodating, so I'm just a smidge under 6 foot, and it doesn't feel too small. It doesn't feel like I'm riding a toy bike by any stretch, so it feels like a grown-up motorcycle. It doesn't feel out of its depth, out of the city limits, so that's a nice surprise. It does have enough about it to take you beyond city streets. And this road is actually part of my commute, so I know it well. I ride along here a lot, and I've ridden those other electric bikes along here as well. But it ticks along very nicely indeed. I have noticed that there is something of a gyroscopic effect from the front wheel. So I think they're paired 19s on this bike. Quite skinny tyres, but relatively large wheels. I don't know if the wheel's quite heavy or what, but it seems like when you tip it into the turns, you have to give quite a heave on the bars to get it to turn in. So it's not a kind of nimble and chuckable bike, or as nimble and chuckable as I expected, but the weight is nicely centred in the bike, and it doesn't seem to have the horrendous peg scraping issues of the V-Moto Stash that I've ridden on this route as well, which just seemed to grind out its pegs at every given opportunity. So yeah, if you're doing your backlane scratching, there are probably other bikes you'd choose, but it's nice to ride the Maeving out of the city and put it to the test here. And I think for a commute like this, where it's doing a bit of everything, it's doing a bit of city filtering, bit of country road as well, a little bit of motorway. This RM2 has got enough about it. Check the peg clearance on that corner. Yep, no scraped pegs there, so we're all good. So yeah, there we go. I think this RM2 definitely broadens the scope of the Maeving, and it's been good to get it out into the wilds and test the full extent of its performance. Am I ready to swap from a combustion bike? Maybe not quite, but it's been a fun proof of concept. So there we go, that was the new Maeving RM2, and I was really glad to have the opportunity to try the bike beyond the city limits where I'd ridden the RM1S before and see what it was like at more than 20 miles an hour, and it's actually pretty effective. Okay, the performance levels are equivalent to a 125 really, so it's not a quick bike by that measure, and I did ride it on the motorway a little bit to get here, and that's probably not something I would necessarily recommend. Much as you wouldn't ride a 125 on the motorway. It could do it, it's fine, but at 70 miles an hour you're pretty much maxed out, and that can start feeling a little bit sketchy at times. But then it's not a bike you buy to ride on the motorway, is it? It's a bike for the city, it's a bike for occasional trips out into the lanes like this. And what's interesting is that even on a twisty road, out in the wilds, it's still good fun to ride. It's very different from riding a combustion bike because it's silent, and that's a very, very different experience. Still fun in its way, not perhaps as kind of blood pumping as riding a noisy petrol bike like the one that's just riding past me there, but fun in its own way. And what about the bike as a whole? Well, I like the look of it. I think the Maeving style is really cleverly done. This kind of mishmash of classic and modern, you know, things like the carbon fibre mudguards on this one, the uprated shocks, they're nice to haves, add a bit more to the cost. But the style is really appealing. The workmanship and the quality of the parts seems really, really good as well. But then we get to the cost, £8,000. It's double the price of a Honda GB350S, which seemingly tickles a lot of the same taste buds as this in terms of the style and kind of people it would appeal to. And this is so much more money, isn't it? Can it really stand comparison? Well, Maeving would say you've got to look at it less as a price comparison with other motorbikes and more with other modes of transport. So if you lived in London, how much does a Maeving cost on monthly finance compared with your travel card? And that's really the audience that Maeving is aiming at, the kind of people who've grown up riding line bikes, using public transport and that kind of thing, fancy something a bit different, but perhaps haven't found a motorbike that appeals to them. And that's successfully where this bike is taking people, and it's really good that it's attracting young riders. But yeah, it is a lot more money. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Is it just an expensive hipster plaything? Is it the future of motorcycling? Let's have a talk about that in the comments thread. I'd love to hear what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed this video as well. If you did, please hit like. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, please do so. It would mean a lot. And for now, I'll say goodbye, thanks for watching, and ride safe.